Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the middle of the order today, or I guess continuing today, another TOP for you guys, and it is your Miami Marlins. And can I just say, I think this is a fun one to talk about here because this team, it was definitely an interesting 2023 season for the Marlins, which sets up an even more interesting 2024 season for your Miami Marlins. They finished 84 and 78. That was 26th in runs for, 16th in ERA, and 16th in runs against. They finished 3rd in the NL Central, 6th in the NL overall, and 13th in MLB. And by 6th, I mean 5th, because they were the 5 seed entering playoffs. They were a playoff team. They got swept by the Phillies in the wild card series, and thus means they will have the 16th pick overall in the draft. Now, we'll go into a little bit of the who, what's, and wheres of the Marlins before we actually dive deep into them. They added Christian Bentoncourt on a trade, Nick Gordon on a trade. That's an interesting move there. Vidal Brujan, Trey Mancini, a non-roster invitee, and then the big name here, or at least the name that I'm most interested in, Tim Anderson, coming over from the White Sox after historic bad year, one of his worst years of his career. We'll dive into him shortly. Who they lost? They lost quite the list of guys, but I think their young players can make up for it. Jorge Soler is definitely the biggest name lost, the power that he brought to this team. They're 26th in runs for when you lose Jorge Soler as a power bat. It's hard to see you guys improving, but David Robertson also gone, Garrett Hampson, Matt Moore, Matt Barnes, Yuli Gurriel, Johnny Cueto, Jacob Stallings, Joey Wendell, Gene Segura, and Steven Okert, all of which no longer Marlins. So the team as a whole, you could say, got a little bit worse off of that alone. But of course, they have lots of young talent, young pitchers, and young players in general to bring up this year. The rotation is strong, and that has always been a success for Miami. Jesus Luzardo, the ace, the star for Miami there. He's the number one. Yuri Perez, the young kid. He had a great, debut year last year. He was the second rotation guy there. This is interesting for me. AJ Puck, listed as the 3 right now from Fangraphs. He's never started a Major League game, so I don't know how I feel about that one. Edward Cabrera and Trevor Rogers rounds off that rotation. That's a very strong rotation, and that's even without guys like Sandy Alcantara and Braxton Garrett. Sandy Alcantara obviously out for a year. That's a big blow to Miami. Braxton Garrett, he is questionable for opening day and could be part of the starting rotation, but it is projected that he will be hitting the IL at the start of the season, which is why he's not listed in that starting rotation, because he would be there in my mind if he was 100% healthy, but Fangraphs doesn't think otherwise. The bullpen right now listed by Fangraphs, Tanner Scott, the closing pitcher right now. And you got some interesting names, Anthony Bender, Ryan Weathers. They have Sixto Sanchez listed here. What happened to him? He's been dealing with some injuries and some other problems. But hey, if he's get back and if he can pitch maybe to whatever prospect standard that they had him at, who knows what Sixto Sanchez can bring to the table. The rotation, the starting lineup is the words I was looking for, is as follows. Luis Arias, the hit machine. Contact, and contact is the name of his game. He bats second, leads off. Josh Bell, the first baseman, batting second. A little swap there. Jake Berger, third baseman, playing third, or is batting third. Then you have Jazz Chisholm in the 4 at center field. Tim Anderson batting 5th. The shortstop, Brian De La Cruz, left fielder, bats 6th. Jesus Sanchez bats 7th, playing right field. Avisel Garcia, what happened to him when he signed a free agent deal? He hasn't been around much these last 2 years. He's the DH, listed as 8. And then Nick Fortes right now is your opening day catcher, according to Fangraphs. The bench has Bethancourt on it. It has the speedster, John Birdie, probably one of the fastest guys in the league right now. Vidal Brujan, who they acquired from the trade with the Rays, and then Nick Gordon, who I find is very interesting. They traded Gordon for Steven Okert, and last year the Marlins and Twins made a trade, Pablo Lopez for Luis Arias, and it worked out in both favors. So will we see the same for this year? Will Steven Okert be great for the Twins, and will Nick Gordon be great for the Marlins? Listed on the bench currently, but I feel like if Tim Anderson's struggling, if they want to, Jake Berger's not it, maybe he finds some time at third base. So it'll be interesting to see how Nick Gordon gets used because he was slowly but surely breaking out for the Twins. When you look at the free agents next year, they have Josh Bell, who's a big blow, kind of the new power bat with him and Berger. Maybe Josh Chisholm, Jesus Sanchez. There's some power on the team still. But Josh Bell, free agent. Tim Anderson signed a one-year deal, so he is a free agent. And then Tanner Scott, right now listed as the closer and probably the best player in the bullpen, listed as a free agent as well. So let's talk about these Marlins and their, drive, I guess, for this year, because it's definitely a little bit different than last year. Because last year was kind of special for the Marlins. 84 and 78, sure. They had a 2% chance to win a division, 31% to make playoffs, and they did. And I think the main reason, if you remember from Miami in general, one-run games was the key to the Marlins' success in 2024. They started the year 12-0 in one-run games, meaning if they were up by one, they were winning that game. And that was within pretty much the first month, month and a couple of weeks, maybe a week into May, that they were able to go 12-0. They finished the year in one-run games 33-14. Because, they were 26th in runs for and 16th in ERA and runs against. So just slightly below average there, and then was not very good at scoring runs. But the pitching held them in one-run games a lot of the time, and they were able to close out those games. And that was probably why the Marlins were playoff teams in the first place, because you take those 33 games, one run is all you're saying here. So if you just throw 33 games onto the other side as losers, they're dead last and they're not making playoffs, and it's just awful. And that's how close the Marlins were. And some people didn't think they deserved it, and you can understand those people's opinions of that. But obviously, to close out those one-run games, those are important games to win, because those one-run games make the difference here, and they definitely did for the Marlins in this case to go 33-14. And for me, the big thing is, no matter how good the bullpen might be, how the pitching is, it's going to be very hard for the Marlins to replicate that success, I would say, in one-run games. It's just unlikely for it to happen again. But it definitely could. Maybe the Marlins had that magic of, winning out those one-run games. But it'll be interesting to see how they perform in those games this year. Let's take a look at some of the players that are coming on into the 2024 season. We'll start with the MLB The Show 23 cover athlete, Jazz Chisholm. His first year out in center field, definitely an interesting one, definitely dealt with injuries. Played 97 games, 88 hits, a 250 batting average, and a 761 OPS, 19 home runs. So definitely, injuries held him back, I would say, from his true kind of potential. And it'll be interesting to see how he kind of bounces back second year as a center fielder, and what he can bring to the table, kind of being the Marlins now face of the franchise, essentially. This is the guy that they want. This is the guy that they want out there every day. And, hopefully he can be an all-star and hopefully be that guy for the Marlins, because that's what they kind of need if they're going to have success. And another guy who they definitely need the best out of, Tim Anderson, the two-time All-Star, batting title Silver Slugger, had great years with the White Sox. Phenomenal years, some would say. Last year was anything but that. Historically awful season for for Tim Anderson. 123 games played, 121 hits, had a 2.45 batting average and a 582 OPS. There was a point where that batting average was much lower. Him and Baez were just really just getting made fun of because of how poor their play was last year. Tim Anderson only had one home run too, so I think it's going to be kind of tough for Tim Anderson at first, but hopefully he bounces back. I do like Tim Anderson a lot. And hopefully he's able to find some success with the new team, and hopefully that change of scenery will bring out the best for Tim Anderson, bring out that contact, because he was really good for the World Baseball Classic. Playing second base for Team USA, and of course they played some games in Marlins Park, which is where Tim Anderson's now playing 81 games for this season. So we'll have to see kind of what kind of a year he has, if he can bounce back or not. One guy who had a great year, probably one of the best years for the Marlins last year, Luis Arias. Back-to-back All-Star years for him, back-to-back Silver Sluggers in 2022 and 2023. He finished 8th in the MVP voting, and he had a great year, leading the league in batting average at .354 and .861 OPS. Had 10 home runs for someone who's not a power hitter. In 147 games, how about 203 hits? He was great, and he's been, kind of turning into a star. Last year definitely being the best year of his career, and I think it's only going to get, better. He's going to cement himself as a top second baseman in the league. And yeah, batting first, lead it off, get a hit. I love his stance. He pokes the ball, he finds the gap, and gets on, and that's a huge reason into the Marlins, formula for scoring runs. He's not the fastest guy out there, but he'll definitely find a way to break the pitcher, tough at bat after tough at bat, getting up there in pitches. So watch out for Arias. And even Josh Bell. He's kind of, he hasn't been the same from his Pirate days. Let's just say that. Finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year in 2017. His first and only All-Star appearance in 2019. He had a 936 OPS. He had 37 home runs. He's at the top of his game. And he hasn't been that since 2022. He was a Silver Slugger, played on Washington, played on San Diego. Last year he played on Cleveland, and then got moved to Miami. So in the span of the last 2 years, he's played for 4 teams essentially, and now he's on, continuing the year with the Marlins here. In total last year, of course, with Cleveland and Miami, played 150 games, 135 hits, a 247 batting average, a 744 OPS, and 22 home runs. I think that's a good thing to note, is that in 97 games with the Guardians, he hit 11 home runs, and then in 53 games with Miami, he hit 11 home runs. His season kind of turned around a little bit when he went over to Miami. He had a 233 average with Guardians, 270 with Miami, 701 OPS with the Guardians, 818 with the Marlins, and that was with like 30, 40 games less. So that's a big thing for Josh Bell going forward, and hopefully a full season in that Miami uniform will, bring out the Josh Bell that was in 2019 when he was with the Pirates at 936 OPS. He's a hitter. He can still slug the ball. So we just got to see it for another full season with Josh Bell here. And I think that could be, without Jorge Soler there, he's going to step up in the power field. He's going to need to be hitting those home runs for Miami Marlin players. Let's talk about some of the pitchers really quickly, specifically the youngster, Yuri Perez. Without Sandy Alcantara there, kind of looks to him to kind of keep that rotation in check. Like I said, Miami's had great pitching for years now, and that 1-5 is still a very strong rotation and a very strong list, even without Braxton Garrett, even without Sandy. I mean, throw those guys in the mix, and you're talking about one of the best rotations in baseball. Yuri Perez, he came up at one point, was brought back down, and then came back up again. He finished the year with a 5-6 record, 19 starts, a 3.15 ERA, 91 innings pitched, 108 strikeouts, and definitely when he came up for the second time, he was much better. His ERA was dropping game by game. He was doing a lot better than he originally got called up for. And I think that's a big key for him, is that, get Yuri Perez going, get him locked in early in the year, because that's kind of what a key will be to Miami, is the pitching and how good it's going to be for him. Kind of struggled towards the end of the year, giving up runs in each of his games in September. But he's pitching, 6 innings here, 6 innings here, 5 innings there. So, you get Yuri Perez on a streak here, and I think he's going to be a great pitcher for Miami, especially in the future. But you definitely want him to develop more this year, get more starts, stay healthy, stay up the full year, and bring out the best in him and the Miami Marlins. AJ Puck, that's something I want to talk about quickly here. He has played in 142 games with 3 seasons with Oakland, and then last year being his first season with Miami. Was 7-5 with a record, 3.97 ERA, 58 games and 15 saves, 56 innings, 78 strikeouts. Across his 4-year career, he's played 142 games, all of which not a starter. He's been a bullpen guy, he's been a reliever, and he's been a decent one at that, a 3.72 ERA in his career. And Fangraphs has him listed as a starter, and I always am so hesitant when a bullpen player goes to a starting role. Now, when he was with Oakland kind of getting brought up, he was a starter in AAA and AA and was working like that. Oakland at the time, believe it or not, in 2019, 2018, had a very good team and a very good rotation that there was no room for AJ Puck. They ended up going with Jesus Luzardo to run off their rotation come playoff time. But, they had Sean Manaea, they had Chris Bassett, they had guys there. So, Puck was forced into the bullpen and he stayed there, 2 seasons with Oakland after COVID year. He didn't play during 2020. Then gets moved, and he had a strong year again with Miami, a 3.97 ERA. The question that remains now is, being a starter, is that going to change anything? Is that going to affect anything? Who knows what kind of year AJ Puck's going to have if he is a starter? I always get worried by that. So, that's one thing to kind of note and see how the year will progress for him. Overall, the Miami team, there's some fun spots. There's definitely some fun players in the farm system. Max Meyer, he's been a starting pitcher, I believe, who's been around a little bit. He could come up. Thomas White's a guy there. Dax Fulton we've heard of a little bit, or at least I've heard of a little bit. Xavier Edwards, another Tampa Bay Ray player who's been traded over for the Marlins there. Xavier Edwards and Vidal Brujan, switch hitters that I remember playing with MLB The Show, and I liked hitting with those guys. So, all the best for those guys. But yeah, there's definitely options. Sixto Sanchez, what can you get out of him? Yoni Chirinos is on a non-roster invitee. Can he find his way onto the team? As a whole, there's some fun things to be excited about with Miami. I think it comes down to how well they can compete or repeat success. Tim Anderson, can he repeat, his earlier days with the White Sox? Can Avisel Garcia kind of find it when he was with the Brewers? Jesus Sanchez, can he finally get off the strikeout train and develop properly? Josh Bell, Arias, Jake Berger had a great 2023 year. It was the first year I heard of the kid, and he's gonna be 28. How does that fare into the 2024 season? Can Jesus Luzardo be that ace still again and have another strong year? Can Perez continue? Can Cabrera continue? There's a lot to be happy about here with Miami. Of course, the division's going to be tricky with those Braves and those Phillies, who are just maybe slightly, definitely better than you guys. But that wild card is open. I think you guys have a very strong chance at competing for that wild card. Of course, a big thing, like I said, was the clutch factor you guys had last year. You can't, go 33-14 and one-run games last year and expect to do the same this year. But hey, if they can be just as good in one-run games, I think we're talking about another very successful Miami team who could make a wild card push into playoffs, and maybe this year they'll hopefully win a game. The over-under for your Miami Marlins is 77.5. They're definitely not as good as the Braves, Phillies, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres maybe even. But I still think they're a strong team. I think they're going to clip the 80 wins. Pitching is a huge part of the game, and they have great pitchers 1 through 5. They can easily win any game that they go out there with a strong start from their starter. So with that 77.5, I will take the over on the Miami Marlins. Give me 80 wins at least, and probably and possibly a playoff berth for the Marlins again. They did that on the 161st game last year, so who knows what they can do this year. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening to another TOP here. That wraps up today. We got 2 more tomorrow and 2 more Friday. That will round off the week, and will be 20 teams down, 10 to go with 1 more week. Baseball is getting closer and closer. So I hope you guys have been enjoying these TOPs, and I hope you enjoyed this one on the Marlins. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, everybody, so much, and I will see you tomorrow.